It was one of those nights when the rain came down in relentless sheets, a deluge that blurred the line between reality and a watery dream. The windshield wipers on my old sedan were working overtime, but they struggled to keep pace with the relentless downpour. The world outside had turned into a mirage of shimmering lights and dark, elusive shadows. As I drove through the storm-swept streets, my hands gripped the steering wheel with a mixture of determination and trepidation. The windshield was a canvas of raindrops, each one reflecting the dim glow of the streetlights that dotted the deserted road. It was a night when most sensible folks would stay indoors, warm and dry, tucked away from the tempest that had taken hold of the world. But I've always been a compassionate soul, unable to ignore the plight of a stranger in need. So when I saw him, drenched and shivering by the side of the road, his thumb outstretched in a futile attempt to flag down a passing car, I couldn't turn a blind eye. His clothes clung to his frame like a second skin, and his hair was plastered to his forehead in wet tendrils. My heart went out to him, a lone figure battling the relentless rain. I knew the risks, the warnings that echoed in the back of my mind about picking up strangers on a dark and stormy night. But I also knew the importance of empathy, of offering a helping hand when it was needed most. So, with a sense of duty and compassion, I made the decision to pull over and offer him a ride home, a choice that would soon plunge me into a nightmarish journey I could never have anticipated. As the drenched hitchhiker settled into the passenger seat of my car, a sense of unease settled over me. The steady drumming of rain on the roof provided a disconcerting soundtrack to the night's events. I couldn't help but cast a cautious glance in his direction, assessing the stranger who had suddenly become my passenger. He was a man of indeterminate age, his face obscured by long hair completely drenched from the rain. His eyes, however, were the most disconcerting aspect of his appearance. They darted around the interior of the car, pupils dilated and wild, as if he were seeing things that existed solely in his own fractured reality. With a hesitant smile, I tried to put him at ease. "I'm heading home, not too far from here. Where can I drop you off?" I asked, attempting to strike up a conversation and get a sense of the man beside me. But as soon as he began to speak, my unease deepened. His words tumbled out in a manic, disjointed fashion, as though he were piecing together a puzzle only he could comprehend. He spoke of a world hidden beneath the surface, of creatures that lurked in the shadows, waiting to seize control of humanity. "We need to rid the world of the lizard people," he muttered, his voice a frenzied whisper that sent shivers down my spine. I couldn't decipher whether he was speaking metaphorically or believed in some bizarre conspiracy theory. The hitchhiker's obsession with these elusive lizard people was unsettling, to say the least. As the minutes passed, his directions became increasingly vague. A jumble of turn left here and keep going straight that left me disoriented and unsure of our location. It was as though he wanted to lead me into a labyrinth of uncertainty, his motives obscured by his erratic behavior. With every twist and turn on the rain-slicked roads, my uncertainty about the hitchhiker's mental state grew. What had started as a simple act of compassion had now become a journey into the unknown, with a stranger whose grip on reality seemed to be slipping further with each passing mile. As the minutes turned into miles, the atmosphere in the car grew increasingly tense. The hitchhiker's behavior had morphed from erratic to menacing, and the once simple act of offering a ride had taken a sinister turn. He fidgeted in his seat, his eyes fixed on the rain-drenched window, as if searching for some hidden threat. His words had grown more ominous, peppered with cryptic warnings that sent a chill down my spine. "They're watching us, you know," he muttered, his voice trembling with a blend of paranoia and fervor. I could feel the knot of fear tightening in my chest as I realized that this situation had spiraled beyond my control. My attempts to navigate the dark, winding roads had only seemed to fuel the hitchhiker's manic behavior. He insisted on taking us deeper into an unfamiliar and desolate area, his directions a web of confusion and danger. Desperation gnawed at me as I contemplated my options. The notion of simply pulling over and demanding he exit the vehicle crossed my mind, but his unpredictable behavior made me hesitant to provoke a confrontation. Instead, I continued to drive, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, searching for a way out of this nightmare. With each passing moment, the tension inside the car escalated. The hitchhiker's true intentions remained shrouded in mystery, but his menacing demeanor left no doubt that something was horribly amiss. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had unwittingly become a part of a sinister plan, one that had taken a terrifying turn on this rainy night. The road ahead seemed endless, winding its way through a desolate landscape, as the rain continued to fall relentlessly, washing away any hope of escape. The car's interior had become a claustrophobic battleground, where a life-and-death struggle played out against the relentless backdrop of the rainy night. The hitchhiker's demeanor had shifted from menacing to outright dangerous, and I knew that my survival depended on my ability to outwit this sinister and deranged passenger. In an instant, his hands shot out, fingers like vices closing around my throat. Panic surged through me as I fought to break free from his grip. The car swerved dangerously on the wet road as we grappled, my vision blurred by the onslaught of rain on the windshield. The rhythmic drumming of raindrops served as a grim accompaniment to our struggle, punctuating the sounds of labored breaths and the occasional screech of tires as we careened dangerously close to the edge of the road. The headlights of passing cars sliced through the darkness, oblivious to the life and death drama unfolding within my vehicle. With adrenaline surging through my veins, I summoned every ounce of strength and determination. My fingers clawed at his hands, desperate to break his hold. Rain-soaked clothes clung to our bodies as we wrestled, the slippery fabric making the struggle even more treacherous. As the seconds ticked by, it became evident that the outcome of this harrowing battle was far from certain. The hitchhiker's erratic behavior had taken a violent turn, and I was left with no choice but to fight for my life. The rain continued to fall, a cruel reminder of the relentless world outside, as I clung to the hope of escaping this nightmarish ordeal. The climax of this nightmarish encounter hung in the balance as we struggled within the confines of the rain-slicked car. Every moment felt like an eternity, a desperate battle for survival in the midst of a relentless storm. My determination to outwit the sinister hitchhiker was my only lifeline. Then, as if by a stroke of sheer luck, a ray of hope pierced through the darkness. With a surge of adrenaline, I managed to break free from the hitchhiker's grip, pushing him away with every ounce of strength I could muster. The car swerved, tires screeching in protest, and I seized the opportunity to escape. I slammed my foot on the gas pedal, propelling the car forward with renewed determination. The hitchhiker, now drenched with rain and fury, watched helplessly as I sped away, leaving him standing alone in the night. The resolution of that night's encounter remained etched in my memory, a chilling reminder of the thin line between compassion and danger. The rain continued to fall, washing away the echoes of that harrowing struggle, but the terror of that night would linger long after the storm had passed. The impact of that nightmarish experience left scars that ran deeper than any physical wound. It was a stark reminder that even the most well-intentioned acts of kindness could lead to unforeseen horrors. The Drenched Hitchhiker had become a haunting specter in my past, a shadow that would forever shape my perspective on the world and the unpredictable darkness that could lurk within it. It was one of those nights when the rain felt like it had a vendetta against the city. You know the kind, when each drop seems to carry a weight of its own and the sky's fury knows no bounds. I had always considered myself a pretty independent woman, living alone in the heart of the city. But that night, as I walked home in the relentless downpour, I couldn't help but feel a shiver of unease run down my spine. The day had been long, and I had stayed late at work to catch up on some pending tasks. By the time I left the office, the sky had already transformed into a dark canvas of brooding clouds. It was as if the heavens had conspired to unleash their wrath upon the city, and I had the distinct misfortune of being caught in the crossfire. As I continued my journey through the rainy streets, my umbrella chose that moment to betray me. With a sharp snap, its frame collapsed, leaving me defenseless against the relentless downpour. It was as if the world itself had conspired to strip me of my protection, and I was left to face the rain's wrath head-on. The feeling of vulnerability began to creep in, wrapping around me like a suffocating shroud. The darkened streets seemed to stretch endlessly before me, their wet surfaces reflecting the hazy glow of distant streetlights. Every step I took echoed in the empty space around me, a stark reminder of my solitude in this desolate, rain-soaked landscape. The unease that had been gnawing at the edges of my consciousness now took center stage. I couldn't help but glance around nervously, my senses on high alert. The rain had turned the world into a distorted, surreal painting, and I was the lone figure navigating its unsettling canvas. There was an ominous stillness in the air, broken only by the sound of the raindrops pattering against the ground and the distant hum of traffic. I quickened my pace, my footsteps splashing through puddles as I tried to put distance between myself and the eerie silence of the empty streets. Each passing moment only seemed to heighten my sense of unease, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss on this sinister night. As I continued walking, now exposed to the relentless rain, a growing sense of vulnerability gnawed at me. The shattered umbrella dangled uselessly from my hand, a stark reminder of my vulnerability in the face of the elements. It was on this deserted, rain-soaked street that I encountered a figure that sent a shiver down my spine. The dim glow of a distant streetlight revealed their silhouette, and my heart quickened its pace. The figure's behavior was, to put it mildly, unsettling. They seemed to move with an eerie and deliberate purpose, their footsteps echoing ominously against the wet pavement. As I drew nearer, the details of their appearance became clearer. They were dressed in tattered clothes that clung to their drenched form, and their hair hung limply over their face, obscuring their features. It was as if they had emerged from the very depths of the rainy night, a spectral presence haunting the desolate streets. My fear intensified as I tried to avoid eye contact and quicken my steps. But the figure continued to approach, their movement steady and relentless. The unease that had been simmering within me now bubbled to the surface, threatening to consume me. In that moment, I couldn't help but wonder if this eerie encounter was merely a sinister twist in an already ominous night. The rain continued to pour, obscuring my vision and amplifying the sense of isolation that had settled upon me like a suffocating cloak. As I quickened my pace, the urgency to evade the strange figure became overwhelming. The rhythmic pounding of my footsteps echoed through the empty streets, each step a desperate attempt to put distance between us. The rain continued to fall relentlessly, as if nature itself conspired to intensify the eerie atmosphere of the night. Glancing over my shoulder, I saw that the figure had not faltered. Instead, they maintained their relentless pursuit, their forms shrouded in the veil of rain and darkness. Fear clung to me like a second skin as I realized there was no mistaking it. The figure was following me, step for step. The tension in the air was palpable, the rain-slicked streets serving as the backdrop for a sinister game of cat and mouse. My heart raced, and my breath came in ragged gasps as I tried to make sense of the inexplicable situation. Why was this person, this ominous figure, following me through the drenched streets? With each passing moment, my unease deepened, and the boundaries between reality and paranoia blurred. The steady pursuit of the figure was a relentless reminder that I was not alone in this eerie, rain-soaked night, my heart pounding in my chest like a frantic drumbeat. I knew I needed to find refuge from the relentless pursuit of the enigmatic figure. As I reached a nearby apartment building, my soaked clothes clung uncomfortably to my body, and my breath came in desperate, ragged gasps. The only thought that consumed me was to escape, to put an end to this sinister game of cat and mouse. With trembling hands, I fumbled for the door handle, my fingers slipping on the rain-slicked surface. Relief washed over me as the door swung open, and I rushed inside, seeking solace from the ominous figure who had been doggedly following me through the wet streets. The interior of the building offered a temporary sanctuary, its dimly lit hallway casting long shadows that seemed to dance in the flickering light. I pressed myself against the cold, damp wall, my breath coming in short, shallow bursts as I listened intently for any sign of the pursuer. Time seemed to stretch endlessly as I waited in silence, the seconds ticking by like agonizing hours. I could hear the rain tapping against the windows, a haunting accompaniment to the tension that filled the air. My heartbeats resonated in my ears, drowning out all other sounds as I hoped beyond hope that the figure wouldn't find me in my hiding place. In the dimly lit confines of the building, my heart leaped into my throat as I heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Dread filled every fiber of my being as the figure I had been desperately trying to elude finally located my hiding place. There was no escape, no way to evade this confrontation any longer. The figure stepped into the hallway, their silhouette eerily illuminated by the faint light filtering in through a nearby window. For a moment, we stood there in silence, locked in a tense and unsettling standoff. But something had shifted within me. The fear that had gripped me for so long had transformed into a strange determination. Summoning every ounce of courage I possessed, I stepped forward, my voice shaking but resolute. "Who are you?" I demanded, my words infused with a surprising assertiveness that even I hadn't anticipated. The figure hesitated, their features slowly coming into focus in the dim light. It was then that I saw the truth. It wasn't a malevolent force that had been pursuing me through the rainy night. Instead, it was just a man, a seemingly friendly man, who had seen my umbrella break and had wanted to offer me his own. As the tension that had gripped us both began to ebb away, the true nature of the night became clear. There were no sinister intentions, no malevolent secrets to uncover. It was a simple misunderstanding, born out of the eerie atmosphere of the rainy night and my own fear. In the end, the night that had seemed so ominous and fraught with danger had merely been a series of unfortunate events, a twist of fate that had brought two strangers together in an unsettling encounter. I'd been on this short hike as a much-needed escape from the daily grind. You know, just your regular person seeking some peace amidst the trees and birdsong. I'm no seasoned hiker, never backpacked or tackled anything too challenging. But there's something about nature that calls to me, a refuge from the relentless chaos of life. The hike had been a modest one, nothing too strenuous, just a couple of hours to unwind and recharge. I had packed a simple lunch and was now preparing to leave my serene spot at a tranquil overlook. I savored that moment, basking in the serenity as if time itself had paused to let me breathe. But as I packed up my lunch and prepared to head back, the first raindrops splattered on the ground. At first it was nothing more than a gentle sprinkle, a mere prelude to the impending deluge. I gazed up at the darkening sky, and my heart sank. Those clouds overhead weren't playing games. They meant business. Rain in the woods can turn a peaceful hike into a muddy ordeal. And now my mind raced not with the calm of the forest, but with one pressing thought. I needed to get back to my car. As I felt the sprinkle intensify, I made the decision to leave the overlook behind, unknowingly stepping into a nightmarish adventure that I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams. I was back in my car, ready to escape the looming downpour, when I realized the unthinkable. I didn't have my keys. Panic surged through my veins and my heart raced faster than a hummingbird's wings. I fumbled through my backpack and pockets in a frantic search, but the keys were nowhere to be found. It was as if they had simply evaporated, leaving me in a state of sheer desperation. The reality of my situation began to sink in. I was stranded in the midst of this idyllic forest, rain pelting down, and with no way to get back home. The rain, which had started as a gentle drizzle, now seemed like a cruel twist of fate, mocking my predicament. There was only one option, a daunting one considering my limited hiking experience. I had to retrace my steps on the trail. Maybe, just maybe, I had dropped those keys along the way, and they lay hidden beneath the foliage, waiting to be discovered. With each step I took back into the woods, my anxiety grew, setting the stage for an adventure I could never have foreseen in my wildest dreams. The rain intensified, each drop feeling like a cold needle prick as I ventured back onto the hiking trail. The once familiar path now seemed shrouded in a different light. Between the thick, rain-laden clouds and the late afternoon hour, darkness crept in stealthily, casting long, ominous shadows through the dense forest. The relentless downpour had isolated me from the world, the pattering raindrops drowning out any sounds of civilization. It was just me, the trees, and the relentless storm. Every step felt like a struggle as the mud beneath my boots threatened to swallow me whole. My clothes clung to my skin, drenched and heavy. As I navigated through the thickening woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. Shadows danced at the corners of my vision, and rustles in the underbrush seemed to whisper secrets I couldn't decipher. The isolation and vulnerability I felt in the midst of the downpour were palpable, and fear clung to me like a second skin. I quickened my pace, driven by the urgency of finding those elusive keys and escaping this nightmarish downpour. The relentless rain seemed to wash away the familiar landmarks, turning the once familiar trail into a maze of uncertainty. With each step, the forest seemed to close in, its secrets hidden beneath layers of drenched leaves and dripping branches. The eerie sensation of being watched followed me, and I couldn't help but glance over my shoulder into the obscurity of the woods, half expecting to see something lurking in the shadows. The storm raged on as I finally reached the overlook where I had stopped for lunch earlier. The rain, relentless and unforgiving, made every step more challenging. My clothes clung to me like a second skin, waterlogged and heavy, but I couldn't afford to give in to discomfort. I had to find those keys. The once scenic spot now looked like a different world. The view that had captured my heart earlier was obscured by thick curtains of rain, and the lush foliage around me was dripping wet and uninviting. The ominous darkness cast by the storm added to my unease. I scoured the area, my eyes darting from rock to tree, from bush to the muddy ground beneath my feet. The search for any sign of those missing keys was a frustrating endeavor, like looking for a needle in a haystack. Panic gnawed at the edges of my mind as I realized that time was not on my side, and I was running out of daylight. The eerie silence of the forest was broken only by the relentless drumming of rain on leaves and the distant rumble of thunder. I couldn't help but wonder if there was something more sinister lurking in the woods, something beyond the realm of the natural. The growing unease in the pit of my stomach made me question my decision to venture deeper into the wilderness in search of those elusive keys. But there was no turning back now. I was committed to finding them and escaping this nightmarish ordeal. The relentless search for my lost keys led me deeper into the heart of the drenched forest, where a series of unfortunate events unfolded, each one more daunting than the last. Each step I took was like stepping into a surreal nightmare. The rain-soaked trail, now more like a muddy riverbed, became the backdrop for my nightmarish journey. My clothes clung to me, heavy and waterlogged, as if they conspired with the elements to slow me down. As I pressed on, determination burned within me. I couldn't allow fear to paralyze me, not when my survival depended on finding those keys. The rain, which had initially been a mere inconvenience, now felt like a malevolent force conspiring against me. It soaked me to the bone, weighing down my every movement, as if nature itself had turned against me. My mind raced, desperately searching for a rational explanation for the series of misfortunes that had befallen me. Each event seemed more surreal than the last, turning this expedition into a nightmarish ordeal. The first blow came when I twisted my ankle on a slippery rock hidden beneath a layer of wet leaves. The pain shot through my leg like a searing bolt of lightning, causing me to stumble and clutch my throbbing ankle. I cursed my luck, wondering if this was the universe's way of testing my resolve. With gritted teeth, I pushed through the pain, determined not to let it hinder my quest for the lost keys. As I continued on the drenched trail, the labyrinthine forest seemed to conspire against me. My sense of direction, already shaky, became completely disoriented. Trees closed in around me like towering sentinels, their branches seemingly shifting to obscure any recognizable landmarks. The once familiar path had transformed into a confusing maze, and I felt like a lost soul in an alien world. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, a blinding flash of lightning seared through the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder that reverberated through the forest. My heart pounded in my chest as I witnessed the electrifying spectacle of lightning striking a tree nearby. The impact sent a shower of sparks and burning debris cascading to the forest floor. I was left standing there, trembling with fear and soaked to the bone, as nature's fury raged on around me. The string of unfortunate events had left me feeling utterly helpless and vulnerable. It was as if the very elements of the forest had conspired against me, testing my determination and resolve. But I couldn't allow fear to paralyze me. I had to press on, find those elusive keys, and emerge from this nightmarish wilderness against all odds. With each passing moment, my determination to recover the lost keys grew stronger. I couldn't allow this nightmarish adventure to consume me. I had to find those keys, survive the relentless downpour, and make it out of this drenched wilderness against all odds. After what felt like an eternity of battling the elements, twisted ankles, and disorienting trails, I returned to the overlook for the third time, my desperation reaching its peak. The rain continued to pour, each drop feeling like a relentless assault, but I couldn't give up now. The keys had to be here. This was my last hope. As I retraced my steps along the soaked ground, my eyes fell upon a glimmer of metal half buried in the mud. It was them, the keys. Relief washed over me like a tidal wave, and I couldn't help but let out a triumphant yell, my voice echoing through the forest. It was a moment of pure triumph amidst the chaos of the night. With the keys in my hand, I felt a sense of exhaustion like never before. The relentless downpour had left me drenched and shivering, my body aching from the strain of the journey. But more than physical fatigue, it was the mental toll that weighed heavily on me. The surreal and terrifying adventure I had endured had tested my limits, pushing me to confront my deepest fears and uncertainties. As I sat in my car, drenched but alive, I couldn't help but look back at the nightmarish odyssey I had just experienced. The forest, once a place of solitude and solace, had become a battleground of survival. It had forced me to confront my vulnerability and push me to the brink of despair. With the keys in the ignition, I couldn't help but steal one last glance at the obscurity of the woods behind me. The rain continued to pour, and the forest remained an enigma, concealing secrets that defied explanation. I had emerged from this surreal and terrifying adventure with a newfound appreciation for the power of nature and the resilience of the human spirit. As I drove away, I knew that this night would forever be etched in my memory as a testament to the indomitable will to survive against all odds. The rain on that particular night was relentless. It came down in sheets, each drop striking our windows with a fierce determination, and the distant rumble of thunder resonated like an approaching juggernaut. You know those stormy nights when it feels as if the sky has unleashed its fury. Well, this was one of those nights. As I stood by the window, gazing out into the tumultuous darkness, I couldn't help but marvel at the power of nature. Our quaint suburban neighborhood, usually bathed in the warm glow of streetlights, was now engulfed in the raw forces of a storm. The rain was a symphony of percussion, the thunder a relentless bass note, and the occasional flash of lightning painted stark, fleeting images on the canvas of the night. In the living room, my wife Sarah sat nestled on our well-worn sofa, cradling a steaming cup of tea. Her eyes, a mixture of concern and determination, remained fixed on the window. She was the anchor of our family, and her calm presence offered a comforting reassurance that everything would be okay. But little did she know, on this stormy night, that her strength would be put to the ultimate test. Our two children, Emily and Ben, sat on the floor, their faces illuminated by the soft, flickering glow of the candles we had lit as the power flickered. Emily, the older of the two, was a curious soul with an imagination that knew no bounds. She pressed her nose against the window, watching raindrops race down the glass like miniature rivers. Beside her, Ben clutched his favorite stuffed animal, Mr. Snuggles, his wide eyes filled with both wonder and trepidation. At 6 years old, he was the more reserved of our children, but his instincts were sharp, and he had an uncanny ability to sense when something was amiss. Our house had been our haven for years, a place where we had forged countless memories. From the warmth of family dinners to the coziness of movie nights with popcorn strewn across the living room floor, it had been the backdrop to our most cherished moments. But as I glanced around the room, little did I know that on this stormy night, the very foundations of our home would be shaken, and our sense of security would be shattered. This is where our story begins, a story of a seemingly ordinary family thrust into an extraordinary and terrifying ordeal on a night when the rain would unveil secrets hidden beneath our very feet. The rain had been falling steadily for hours, a relentless downpour that showed no signs of relenting. It started as a gentle tapping on the windows, but now it was a cacophony like 1,000 tiny fists pounding on the glass. I glanced outside, and the world beyond our home had transformed into a blurry, waterlogged landscape. The sky, once a peaceful canvas of stars, had succumbed to the tempest's wrath. The clouds swirled in angry shades of gray, occasionally illuminated by jagged bolts of lightning that tore through the heavens, casting eerie, fleeting shadows across our living room. The thunder that followed was nothing short of a roar, shaking the very foundation of our house. In the midst of this watery chaos, my family and I had gathered in the living room. My wife, Sarah, sat on the couch, her face etched with concern as she clutched a steaming cup of tea. It was as if the warmth of the cup could provide solace against the raging storm outside. Emily, our inquisitive daughter, sat cross-legged on the floor beside her, her wide eyes fixed on the window. She was fascinated by the sheer power of nature, even as it unleashed its fury. Beside Emily, Ben, our younger son, held tightly to his favorite stuffed animal, Mr. Snuggles. His small frame was huddled against Sarah, his gaze shifting nervously between the window and the flickering candles we had lit to combat the intermittent power outages. At 6 years old, he possessed an uncanny ability to sense when something was amiss, and on this stormy night, his instincts were on high alert. As I took in the scene, a sense of unease settled over me. The rain had turned the street outside into a small river, and the water was steadily creeping toward our doorstep. Worry gnawed at my gut. How much more rain could the earth hold? What if the water levels continued to rise? As the relentless storm outside persisted, our senses were suddenly piqued by an unusual occurrence. From somewhere beneath our feet, faint whispers drifted up to our ears, as if the very foundation of our house were trying to convey a message. The words remained unintelligible, like an ancient language lost to time, shrouded in mystery. In the dimly lit living room, my family and I exchanged intrigued glances, each of us trying to decipher the source of these enigmatic sounds. Emily's curiosity was sparked, and she asked, "Daddy, what's that noise? Is it the storm?" I strained my ears, listening intently. The whispers were accompanied by an occasional thud, as though something was moving below us. It wasn't the storm, that much was clear. The mysterious sounds were emanating from the basement. With an increasing sense of curiosity, I decided to investigate. I reached for a flashlight from the nearby table, its comforting weight solid in my hand. It wasn't fear that drove me, but rather an earnest desire to uncover the source of this captivating mystery. Descending the wooden stairs to the basement, the air grew heavy with an earthy scent, and a chill crept through the darkness. My footsteps echoed as I ventured further, the atmosphere thick with intrigue and uncertainty. The flashlight's beam pierced the shadows, revealing cobweb-laden corners and forgotten relics of the past. As I moved deeper into the basement, my eyes were drawn to a perplexing sight on the concrete floor. A series of faint scratches marred the surface, as if something had dragged itself across the floor recently. My inquisitiveness soared. I couldn't help but wonder what had left these marks and why. It was a riddle I was determined to solve. The storm outside had introduced an enigmatic element into our once peaceful home, and I was eager to delve deeper into this unexpected and mysterious turn of events. As I ventured further into the basement, the eerie atmosphere thickened with every step. The flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, revealing cobweb-laden corners and forgotten relics of the past. My initial curiosity about the strange scratches on the floor had given way to a growing concern. I had descended the stairs to investigate the enigmatic sounds that had emanated from below, but as I made my way across the basement, my focus shifted. It wasn't long before my eyes caught a troubling sight. Water was seeping into the basement. The source of the water's intrusion remained a mystery, but the fact that it was steadily encroaching upon the basement's floor sent shivers down my spine. I knew I had to act quickly to prevent any further damage to our home. With a sense of urgency, I scanned the area, searching for the source of the seeping water. My flashlight's beam danced over the walls, the floor, and the corners of the basement, but there were no obvious cracks or openings. It was as if the water was seeping in from an unseen source, creeping in like an insidious intruder. As I knelt down to inspect a particularly damp patch of floor, I was startled by a sudden noise, a faint growl, low and guttural, echoing from the darkness beyond the reach of my flashlight. It sent a shiver down my spine and froze me in place. I strained to listen, my heart pounding as the growl grew closer, accompanied by a rustling sound like something moving through the shadows. It was then that I realized, to my horror, that I was not alone in the basement. The unsettling presence of something sinister had made itself known, and I was about to confront a terror that I could never have anticipated. My breath caught in my throat as I glimpsed two gleaming eyes, reflecting the light of my flashlight. They shone like twin orbs in the darkness, unblinking and fixed upon me. The eyes seemed to belong to a creature, but its form remained shrouded in obscurity. My mind raced with uncertainty. What manner of animal could lurk in the basement, and why was it growling at me? Questions swirled, and I couldn't help but wonder if the creature was rabid, its behavior erratic and menacing, but I couldn't be sure. Fear and curiosity waged a silent battle within me. It was then that I made a decision, driven by an instinct to prioritize safety. I slowly backed away from the mysterious creature, taking measured steps toward the stairs that led back to the main floor of our home. It didn't seem worth risking an encounter with an unpredictable animal, rabid or not. As I ascended the stairs, my heart pounding with each step, I reached for the basement door's handle. To my dismay, it didn't budge. I pushed and pulled, but it seemed jammed, as if something were blocking it from the other side. Panic set in, as I realized that I was trapped in the basement with an unknown, potentially dangerous creature, and the only way out was sealed shut. As I desperately struggled with the basement door, my heart pounding in my chest, I heard a familiar voice from the other side. It was Sarah, my wife, and she had come down to check on me. "Danny, what's going on down there? Are you okay?" She called out with a mixture of concern and urgency. Relief washed over me as I realized I wasn't alone in this unsettling situation. "Sarah, it's stuck. I can't get it open," I replied, my voice tinged with anxiety. Sarah, always level-headed in a crisis, joined me in trying to free the stubborn door. We pushed and pulled together, but it remained resolutely immobile. Panic threatened to take hold as we wrestled with the uncooperative barrier. In a sudden moment of realization, I asked, "Wait, Sarah, did you lock this door?" There was a pause, and then her voice held a hint of embarrassment. "Oh, Danny, I think I might have locked it earlier, just to be safe during the storm." A sense of both exasperation and amusement washed over me. Here we were, trapped in the basement, with the ominous presence of the creature still lingering below, and the cause of our predicament was a simple locked door. With a sigh and a wry chuckle, I unlocked the door and quickly swung it open. Without hesitation, I scrambled out of the basement, and Sarah followed suit. I slammed the door shut behind us, as if to keep the enigmatic creature and the watery abyss locked away. Breathing heavily, we exchanged a glance, a mixture of relief and humor in our eyes. My escape from the basement had been marred by an unintentional and comical twist, but it was a welcome end to a series of eerie and unsettling events. In the aftermath of my harrowing ordeal in the basement, the reality of the situation settled upon us like a heavy fog. The enigmatic creature that had lurked in the darkness, its unsettling growls and menacing presence, had turned out to be none other than a rabid raccoon. Animal control arrived the next day, trapping the intruder and ensuring our safety. As we surveyed the basement, the true extent of the damage became painfully apparent. The seeping water, left unchecked during our bizarre encounter, had wreaked havoc on our home's foundation. Repairs would cost us over $20,000, a financial burden we had not anticipated, and that didn't even account for the items that had been damaged by the relentless flood. Reflecting on the entire experience, I couldn't help but shudder at how close we had come to disaster. The combination of the storm's fury, the mysterious sounds from below, and the encounter with the rabid raccoon had made for a genuinely terrifying experience. It was a reminder that sometimes, in the most ordinary of moments, the line between safety and danger can blur, and the unexpected can turn a simple rainy night into a nightmarish tale we would carry with us for the rest of our lives.